What if I told you that one of Kazakhstan's most famous symbols isn't what it seems? That an ostrich is basically part camel? Or that a very popular snack is named after a worm? Well, today we're diving into the hidden truths behind some of the most surprising words you'll find in the Kazakh language.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a big one. You've definitely seen pictures of Kazakhstan's incredible national symbol, the Altyn Adam, or the Golden Man. But have you ever really stopped to think about it? Is he actually made of solid gold?
The answer might surprise you. Nope, the warrior figure itself was actually cast in bronze. The famous name comes from the thousands of tiny gold ornaments that were sewn all over his clothes. So, right from the start, we've got a name that's telling us a slightly different story from reality.
So what's going on here? Well, there's a fantastic word for this. It's called a misnomer. It's basically a name that's technically a bit wrong or doesn't quite fit. And as we're about to find out, language is absolutely full of these fascinating mistakes that aren't really mistakes at all.
And really, there's no better place to go hunting for misnomers than the world of nature. It's where words get wonderfully creative and, well, a little deceptive. Let's start with a huge one, the Aral Sea. And Kazakh, Aral Tengezi, literally means the Aral Sea. But if you ask a geographer, they'll tell you that because it's a body of water completely surrounded by land, it's technically a lake. So the name isn't about scientific classification, it's about its sheer size and the immense role it played in history. It felt like a sea.
All right, so for our next one, what on earth could a camel possibly have in common with a bird?
Well, meet the tuyakus, which is the Kazakh word for an ostrich. And if you translate it literally, it means camel bird. You can just picture it, can't you? Our ancestors saw this huge bird with a really long neck and long legs and thought, you know what that reminds me of? A camel. It was a brilliant comparison based on what they already knew.
And this shows us a really common pattern. We often name things based on what they just plain look like. Take, for instance, the Tangshalban, the morning star. You see it shining so brightly in the sky right before sunrise. The only thing is, it's not a star, not even close. It's actually the planet Venus.
And this pattern is just everywhere once you start looking for it. Check these out. We've got Goyan korolak, a mushroom named rabbit's ear, Apkulak, a plant called horse's ear, and Jalanbas, another plant which means snake's head. It seems our brains are just hardwired to see something new and immediately ask, what does that look like? Okay, so let's step out of the natural world and into a place that's surprisingly full of its own linguistic puzzles, your kitchen. This is something we're all pretty familiar with. We see things like soya iti, or soy meat, and badam sutu, almond milk. And of course, we know they aren't really meat or milk in the traditional sense, but the names are incredibly useful shortcuts, right? They tell us exactly how we're supposed to use them, as a substitute for the original. But then you get some trickier ones. Imagine someone offers you a traditional Kazakh snack called qurt, a name which, if you translate it literally, means worm. So, how's your appetite now?
Okay, don't worry, it's not actually a worm. Phew! Qurt is a super popular traditional snack. It's basically a hard, salty little ball made of dried sour milk. It's delicious and a really clever way to preserve dairy for a long time. But it's definitely a case where you do not want to judge a food by its name.
You know, these misnomers aren't just hiding in nature or in our food. They're also deeply woven into the fabric of our culture and our history, and they shape the way we talk about the world. Think about a simple phrase like the capital of Kazakhstan. Today, the answer is Astana, of course. But for most of the 20th century, as you can see here, the capital was Almaty. So the correct answer to that question totally depends on historical context. The meaning of the name is tied to a specific point in time. Or what about the word for money, aksha? The root of that word, ak, means white, which probably comes from the time when money meant silver coins. But think about money today. It's colorful paper, different kinds of metal, and more often than not, it's just digital numbers on a screen. The word stuck around long after its original meaning faded away. So we've seen all these examples, from warriors to snacks to planets. What's the big idea here? Why does language have so many of these little quirks, and what do they really tell us about ourselves? This is probably the most important thing to remember. These aren't just mistakes that we're stuck with. A better way to think about them is as linguistic fossils. Each one perfectly preserves a little moment in time, a moment someone made a clever comparison, or a piece of history that's been forgotten, or even just a tiny flash of poetry.
So you see, there's a kind of logic behind the inaccuracy. As we've seen, these names stick around for all sorts of reasons. It might be a strong visual resemblance, like our camel bird, or maybe a more metaphorical description, like the snake's head plant. Or it could be history that's changed, or an original meaning that's just been lost over time.
And when you put it all together, what you realize is that language is this amazingly creative and flexible tool. It's not always trying to be scientifically precise or perfectly literal. It's built on layers of metaphor and history and human observation, and that's what makes it so rich and so interesting. So the next time you hear a name that sounds a little off, don't just dismiss it as being wrong. Pause for a second and ask yourself, what's the story this word is trying to tell me? What other words that you use every single day might be hiding their own fascinating little secret?